And welcome to Ave Explores Live. I'm Katie Prejean McGrady, the host of Ave Explores, a multimedia project of Ave Maria Press, where we tackle deep dive issues, or we deep dive into big issues. We tackle those big issues together to really take a look at a topic that interests me, that I think would interest you, that interests our whole team that develops the content from all different angles, to hear experts, to listen to people's opinions about certain moments within the life of the Catholic Church, to ultimately help us become more faithful, devoted Catholics, to live our life. We've done a variety of different topics. I was just thinking this morning about how many awesome topics we've tackled with Ave Explores in the 2 years that we've done these deep dive projects. We've looked at Mary and mental health. We've explored social justice issues. We've dug into what does it mean to be devoted to the saints? How can we live as Catholic families? And what does Catholic family look like? Not just from the perspective of mom, dad, and the burbs with a couple of kids, but the whole gamut of Catholic family life. And this series that we're wrapping up this week has been about Catholicism around the world. What does the church look like outside of my own zip code? One of my favorite parts about this entire theme, this particular topic, the way we've looked at it, is we've literally just kind of gone through the map. I've called up folks that I've had the privilege of meeting and knowing from around the world to ask them their opinions on the church where they are, to ask them how the church is thriving in their particular country, the places that they grew up, the things that they're seeing, the ways that the church is alive. And in the process of having those conversations, obviously I'm the host, so I've got things that I want these folks to share with me because I've come up with the questions, but I've learned a lot about what it just means to be a faithful everyday Catholic, which is always the goal of Ave Explores. When I had a conversation with a young man from Samoa about the environment, learning about how Samoans and their faith, and that impacts the way that they live within the physical world to help preserve their island, which in some senses is kind of falling into the ocean because of climate change. That conversation was convicting. It challenged me to think about things from a different perspective. We have a podcast episode with Percival Holt from India, and he talks about how the vibrant Church of India is alive and thriving in young people who are going out and embracing the call to be missionary disciples. Just last week here on Ave Explores Live, we had a conversation with Father Lim Gamsi about his life moving from Cameroon to England, and then back to Cameroon, and then back to England, where he's now serving as a young priest. You can find that conversation on our Facebook page, our YouTube page, our Vimeo page, on our Instagram TV. I'm so thrilled today to have with me Sister Emanuela Edwards. She is a religious sister of the Missionaries of Divine Revelation. We had the awesome opportunity to do some ministry together way back in 2019. It feels like a lifetime ago, in the Diocese of Birmingham for a girls' event. And when I thought about wanting to talk about the church in England and wanting to talk about the church in Rome, Sister Emanuela was top of my list. So I'm so excited to welcome her onto Ave Explores Live. She'll be joining us in just a second as she turns her video camera on. Sister, thank you so much for joining us for Ave Explores Live.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I have to say it's an honor for me.
I'm so excited to get to talk to you. I loved getting this. I wore green in honor of you. I've got my Manchester mug ready to go. Sister, tell us a little bit about where you are and about your religious order, the Missionaries of Divine Revelation.
Okay, well, as you said, I'm based here in Rome. I'm a member of the congregation of the Missionaries of Divine Revelation, and we've just celebrated our 20th anniversary as an order.
Oh, wow.
We were founded we came out of the story of the apparition of the Virgin of Revelation, who in 1947 appeared to a Protestant, Bruno Cornacchiola, and converted him. Now
Oh, wow.
Our lady had an astounding message, and she here directly in Rome, and she called Bruno to return to the true fount of the gospel, and she appeared holding the scriptures, and she said, "I am the Virgin of Revelation." And of course, Bruno was a Protestant, and he wanted to kill Pope Pius XII.
Oh,
But
wow.
of course, after that meeting with Our Lady, that all changed.
Yeah.
Another important thing about the apparition, Our Lady spoke of her assumption into heaven, and she said, "I could not die, I did not die, because I am immaculate. My son and the angels took me to heaven." And so this message was given to Pope Pius XII, and of course, on the 1st of November 1950, Pope Pius XII proclaimed the dogma of the Assumption.
Mm.
And so, just as in Lourdes there's a link to the dogma of the Immaculate Conception, here in Rome we have this wonderful link to the dogma of the Assumption of Our Lady into heaven.
So tell me a little bit about what the missionaries are doing. What is your mission to preach this divine revelation, to share this apparition? What are some of the charisms of the order?
The charism is to be a missionary in the third millennium. Our Lady said, be missionaries of the words of truth. And so our mission, if you like, is in every way to bring the gospel of the Lord to the world. And so we do it in whatever way we can. And so you can find the green nuns, as we're known here in Rome. You can find us in the parishes teaching the catechism to the young people and to the children. You can find us also, one of our apostolates for what we're quite famous for is that of art and faith, because we're the official guides for the tours of art and faith in the Vatican Museums and St. Peter's Basilica. And so it's not uncommon to find a green nun with a crowd of pilgrims in tow going through the wonderful basilicas, talking about the wonders of the faith here in Rome. But also, in these times, we pilgrims, we don't have pilgrims in Rome at this moment because of the situation. And so we've had also this desire to go out to the world. And so you find us now also online. So we've been doing online rosaries, online catechesis, online tours of art and faith. And so whatever means we can, we implore to bring God's wonderful message to the world. And also devotion to Our Lady, who's our model in the Christian life and our inspiration as well.
I love the image of you've got the little flag and the pilgrims following behind you. Sister Emmanuela, was this what you wanted to be when you were a little girl growing up in England? I asked you where you were from, and you said in between Manchester and Liverpool. So you grew up in the north of England. Did you want to be a green nun? I mean, they haven't existed that long. So tell us a little bit about your backstory, where you came from, how you grew up.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a normal working class background in Wigan. I suppose when I was young, I was always interested in a career in business. I studied economics at university, and so I wanted in some way to work in that field. But of course, we always say to young people, if you look back over your life, you can see the lines that God has connected. And so I always had in my heart a strong desire, a strong love for the Lord, and a desire to do something that He wanted me to do.
Mm-hmm.
As time went on, I completed my university studies, and I went to work in the banking world. I worked in the City of London and worked on some important projects, and so the Lord blessed my career greatly. And by the time I was relatively young, I had prominent positions in the bank, and then I became a consultant. But in my heart, there was something missing, and so in the many places where I would visit, I would always have a business book in hand and also a theology book as well.
Wow.
And so I thought, well, Lord, you can ask me to do anything, but just not that.
Yeah.
I love you, Lord, but just don't ask me that. I wanted a normal life, really. And it was when I finally discovered that God's plans for me were better than my plans for me, that my life really changed. And indeed, the Virgin of Revelation entered that story because I learned about the apparition, and I started to teach the faith in the parish. And it was a little bit like that experience of the apostles on the road to Emmaus, and they said, did not our hearts burn within us?
Mm-hmm.
And, I had that experience of on a Monday evening when I would teach the faith, I would feel somehow more alive and doing what I should be doing than when I was in the office at work, although by that time I was the director of a company.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Lord blessed me with great things and great success. But
Yeah.
he called for that something more. And
Hmm.
so, after a visit to Rome and a prayer said in the grotto at Tre Fontane, I realised he called me to become a green nun.
Yeah. So was it always just the Missionaries of Divine Revelation? Did you look at other orders? I mean, they had your heart from the beginning.
No, no, they had my heart from the beginning because I suppose in my youth, I did have a friend who was a sister, and she would always tell me, I think you've got a vocation. I would run the other way. Sister Josephine, she's now in heaven. I'm sure she prays for me a lot. And so I wouldn't even entertain it. But that day, that call, I saw Sister Priscilla and Sister Agnese, and I'd asked the Lord, what did He want of my life? And when I
Hmm.
heard that answer in my heart, it was always the green nuns for me. So
I love that. I love that. Always the green nuns for me. So you are a missionary there in Rome. Tell me a little bit about. You mentioned your apostolate of bringing people into St. Peter's and giving them tours. I mean, you probably have the amazing opportunity to meet people from around the world in non-COVID times. We're going to pretend COVID's not a thing. We're back in 2019. The world is still open. Um, what has that done for your personal faith? I mean, you have come from England to Rome. You get the chance to meet pilgrims from around the world. What have you learned about the universality of the church as a result of this apostolate that you get to do?
you know the great thing about the church, we call it the Catholic Church, and it means properly that universal. And when you stood in St. Peter's Square, there's that great colonnade by Gian Lorenzo Bernini. And it's the arms of Christ open wide to greet everyone. And so it doesn't matter where in the world people come from. And now I am blessed with friends from all over the world. And it doesn't matter where they come from. It doesn't matter what experience they've had. But when we celebrate the Holy Mass, we have something truly in common that is universal. We have the
Mm-hmm.
real presence of our Lord in the Eucharist. And so there is always something that unites us. And so for those who have the faith and share our Catholic faith, there's this very strong bond, and there's this way of looking at a work of art and seeing in some way the presence of God and the wonderful stories of the saints. But what about those who are, if you like, a little bit further away?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This art, the church also has a way of reaching out to them.
Mm-hmm.
When sometimes when people come on the tour of the Vatican Museums and they see a sister, they get a shock. So what is it going to be like? But they find that by listening to the stories recounted in the wonderful works of art, that we're able to somehow find some common ground.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
this is the call of the Lord. Because if I was to walk around St. Peter's Square and start to speak to people, they'd probably think I was from Mars because I was wearing green, yeah? But when you're before a work of art and you recount the story that lies within it,
Mm-hmm.
even if someone doesn't believe, they're able to listen to that story.
Mm-hmm.
And in a certain way, the church has got this great wisdom because they would never ever have heard that story in any
Yeah.
other context. And
Yeah.
so the church has these great instruments of communication which can touch the hearts of those who believe and make them believe more.
Mm-hmm.
And they can touch the hearts of those who've never heard the truths of the faith
Mm-hmm.
and get them to ask the question. So as God's very poor instrument, I find myself before a miracle on every tour.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everybody says, well, how many times have you done this tour? Sure, many, many times. But every tour is unique
Mm-hmm.
because every group is unique.
Yeah.
And the Lord sends me in some way for someone in that group in order to reach out.
Yeah.
And so as a sister, we're called to be also maternal. And
Mm-hmm.
so we have to have a maternal gaze on the people who we meet with this desire that they know Jesus and his love. And
Mm-hmm.
so one of the things that I've always said is my job is to tell the world that God loves them.
Mm-hmm.
And the art has this wonderful language which gives me the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very powerful language. And it's a language we need to understand how to use more.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the language of beauty. It captivates. It thrills. I was just thinking earlier today while preparing for something else about the first time I walked into St. Peter's as a college student, 19 years old. You walk in for the first time and you feel at once completely overwhelmed by how big it is, but yet it's home. As a Catholic, it's home. I feel like I belong there. I now, as an adult, having been many times, have my favorite spots in the church that I like to go pray. John the 23rd and I always hang out because he's not very far in, and it's like prior to JP2 being there, he was like the first pope that you could really get to, at least that I would recognize or know. Sister, when you bring people on these tours and they get to see St. Peter's up close, they get to see the art in the Vatican Museums, wherever they are from around the world, what's your favorite spot to kind of do this very beautiful preaching, this your favorite thing to show people that helps bring the church that is so universal and is so big to really bring it more alive in people's hearts?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think what I would say is there's kind of a universal experience when we see the Pietà in
Mm-hmm.
St. Peter's Basilica. Michelangelo's great work is has this wonderful ability to capture everybody's attention. And of course, we see the moment, that 13th station of the cross, when the Lord is taken down from the cross and placed in the arms of his mother. And Our Lady doesn't clutch the Lord to her breast.
Mm-hmm.
She offers him for the salvation of the world.
Mm.
And so, for those who go no further than that, we see the sense that Christ is the greatest gift
Mm.
that could ever be given to this whole world.
Mm-hmm.
But for those who go further, for those who share the faith, they notice that that masterpiece is below an altar. And so we have to point out that this masterpiece reaches, if you like, the height of its meaning, its most sublime significance at the elevation of the host, when the priest would say, "This is my body, given up for you." And of course, those who participate in the Mass at that very altar would see the Eucharist in exactly the same place where the Lord's body is.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of a sudden we see art doing this very tremendous thing. It helps us to communicate the truths of the faith. Because being human, we're called to believe. To have faith is to believe that what we can't see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But when we see the art, it helps us truly believe the wonders of what we say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I think whether we approach the Pietà from the perspective of the faith or for an encounter, I think it's got something to say to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And who cannot have sympathy and empathy for a mother who's just received her dead son.
Yeah, yeah. It's a universal moment. I mean, even the most hardened of hearts is moved by just the objective beauty. But then when you know the fuller story, you know what it truly represents. Let's zoom back for a second. So before you arrived in Rome and became a green nun, giving these tours and speaking so beautifully about the truths of the faith, what was it like growing up in England as a Catholic? And I'm asking this question because on the trip where we met each other, I had a conversation with another young English Catholic, and we actually went together to the church where William Shakespeare is buried in Stratford upon Avon. And as we're standing in the church, having a moment with Shakespeare, I noticed that some of the icons from the walls had been stripped down. And I was confused. And she said, well, this was a Catholic church. And then it was taken by the Anglican church. And so things changed. And I was like, oh, so this is ours, but not really. And she said, well, welcome to what it's like to be an English Catholic, where you kind of always feel like, well, that was once mine, but now it's not anymore. So what was it like growing up in England as a Catholic? You clearly had faith because you were feeling this tug, but what did the church in England look like?
Yeah, I mean, coming from the area of Lancashire in which I do, it's probably one of the most populated, densely populated areas for Catholics in England. So, in a certain sense, I had that sense of, well, everyone's Catholic, yeah. I went to a Catholic school, and so it was reinforced in that. As a young person, I participated in the youth events. I used to play the guitar and have a band that played in church. So I was very motivated for the faith and worked to encourage young people to get involved. And so on one side there was that. On the other side, obviously, in my own family, my father was an Anglican and my mother was a Catholic, so we were the product of what you call a mixed marriage for a certain amount of time. And then when I was 18 years old, my dad suddenly announced he was converting and he became Catholic, but my cousins are a Protestant, and so we had I had, if you like, a relationship with the Anglican Church by virtue of my family, and so I always had a deep respect for their faith, although I knew that they didn't quite have the, if you like, what I call the fullness of the truth, fullness of the beauty of the faith. And so as time went on, the thing about the churches is quite funny, really, because you see a church and you think, is that Catholic or is that Protestant, and how would one know the difference? If you go to Walsingham, you certainly feel that, because the Protestant shrine looks exactly like a Catholic church with statues and everything. And indeed, one of the things that the sisters laugh at frequently here in Rome is, when I first came to Rome, I used to say, oh, look at that beautiful church. And then I would always add, is it Catholic?
Yeah.
And the madre said, of course it's Catholic. But of course, with the constant repetition of this phrase, the madre understood that, the things were different in England, because there is this separation, there is this, there was this change at the time of after Henry VIII and the whole story, and so. But what can I say? Personally, I lived and grew up in a Catholic world. When I then went on to work, it was a different matter, because then you started to work in university, you meet lots of people who don't even believe. And so then I had this real in my younger days, my idea was, well, what about those who don't believe? What should be the attitude? Because sometimes there can be a reticence to go and witness to those people. And so I always felt that I was called to be authentic as a person, and able to go into any situation, but also, if you like, bring the Lord into that situation as well. And so I think that's the challenge. How can you practice your faith and bring it into the workplace, so that those people who know you know that you are faithful.
Yeah, to give that witness. Yeah.
And I think that's the challenge. I think that's what forms great Catholics. The ability to go out and live in the world, but not be of the world, and in very gentle ways. The world has got to see that we love each other. That's what the early Christians used to say. They used to say, see how they love each other. And so as a Catholic, we should feel that we've got to go into those situations where people don't share our faith and then say, see how this person
Mm-hmm.
brings the love of God to those people who perhaps don't know he exists.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I always thought that was the challenge
Yeah.
when I was young and in my work and in my professional life. Obviously, I had lots of responsibilities, and I always wanted to, if you like, reflect the social doctrine of the church, such
Mm-hmm.
that my love of Christ was evident without necessarily always being spoken.
Right, right. A visible witness. I mean, a very visible witness now. You can't help but notice a green nun walking through St. Peter's, but that
Exactly.
very visible witness in your former life in the secular world. Sister, where can we learn more about the Missionaries of Divine Revelation and participate in some of these online things that y'all are doing?
Yeah, we have a website which is in four languages. So for those who know Italian, we have Italian, we have Spanish, we have English, and also Portuguese.
Wonderful.
So there you can find all the latest articles around the feast days. We're running at the moment the series on Saint Joseph for the Novena, building up to the feast. So you can certainly follow the liturgical life of the church with us. There's lots of interesting articles about art and faith, and also our lives as sisters. If you want to know more about how we live our consecration to Christ. We have a contemplative and an active life.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
you can learn more about that all on our website. And our events are always publicised on our Facebook pages and also on our website.
I'm gonna throw up the website really quickly so that everybody can see the handle. It's a very well done opportunity to connect with you all, and then more importantly, I think, like you said, to really to see the life of the sisters up close and personal. I know I was telling you before we went live, my daughter is obsessed with nuns right now. She loves to say good morning to the nuns that come and teach at her school. She's always asking me to tell her more about the Jesus mommies. That's what she calls religious sisters. So I think visiting your website would be an awesome opportunity for folks to learn more, to hopefully maybe take a tour once the world is open up again, to come to Rome and to meet you and the wonderful sisters. Sister Emanuela, it was a joy to see you. Thank you so much for being with us today for Ave Explores Live.
Thank you. It was an absolute pleasure.
I love that Sister's joy is so evident, and this was the case at the event that she and I did together in England. It was at Coombe Abbey, Coombe. You should definitely Google that. Coombe Abbey. It looks like something out of Downton Abbey. It's this old, beautiful mansion essentially that's been turned into this lovely hotel, and we had this event for young girls talking about authentic feminism and the feminine genius and how to be women in the life of the church and in the world today. And so 5 or 6 girls from all these different Catholic schools in the Archdiocese of Birmingham joined us. And Sister, I still remember her beautiful witness and her beautiful talk. And it was Sister Manuela, myself, 2 Dominicans, Nashville Dominicans, actually from the order in Nashville, who are living in Scotland and serving there. And it was just such a beautiful day. And I obviously remembered Sister enough to want to invite her to join us for Ave Explores Live, remembered her story of working in the secular world, remembered her beautiful witness about getting to meet people from around the world. There is something so wonderful about being Catholic, to where you could go anywhere, pretty much anywhere in the world, the far corners of the earth. We talked about this a bit in our Ave Explores series by looking at the different mission outposts, for lack of a better way to put it, of the Congregation of Holy Cross. All these different areas around the world where you can share the faith, where you can find another Catholic, whether you're in Ireland or England or Rome or Haiti or the Caribbean or down in South America or somewhere in Canada or hanging out in the Samoan Islands, wherever you happen to be. We chatted with people from around the world about what the church looks like there and why it's encouraging and inspiring and exciting to see the church around the world, because then I become a better Catholic in my little pocket of the world, because I know I'm not alone. And maybe that's what this whole series was ultimately about. After a year of lockdowns and COVID, we wanted to bring you all around the world with us to look at Catholicism from this global 10,000-foot view so that when we are still stuck at home or when we are just only going back to our own home parishes, not yet able to travel around the world as freely as we once did, we can still know that there's incredible things happening in Rome. There's awesome things happening in England. There's amazing, vibrant aspects and elements of the church in Mexico. There's remarkably beautiful things happening far, far away from us. And so then I appreciate it when it's a little closer to me, just in my own home diocese. You can find all of the content that we've created for Ave Explorers Catholicism around the world over at avemariapress.com. We've got all of the articles, all the videos, the other Facebook Lives that we did, the IGTV. So this conversation and all of our other conversations are available on Instagram TV the day after we host it live. We've got podcast episodes, 10 of them for the entire season that you can listen to, as well as social media exclusives. All of that is housed on avemariapress.com. We hope you go there to find it. We hope you share it. We hope you enjoy it. I know my mom enjoys it, and that's always the audience I have in my head. So I know that there are people out there who are enjoying the content, who are appreciating it, who want it to continue. And we're so grateful for you going and looking at it and sharing it and continuing to be part of this mission of Ave Explorers. As a side note, we, of course, are wrapping up this series. Our final email will be going out tomorrow, St. Patrick's Day, March the 17th. But in just a few weeks, we'll be beginning our next Ave Explorers series. We always have one coming up, Ave Explorers Faith and Science. So what does it mean as a Catholic to really dive into the goodness of theological truth and scientific truth? And how, and perhaps this is the most important part of it, are these two things not contradictory? We have conversations with an astronaut, conversations with bioethicists, physicists, astronomers, Catholic theologians, science teachers, and just regular everyday folks like me who have questions and want to learn. So again, if you go to avemariapress.com, you can find all of that content there, and the upcoming content, you can sign up for it to get it into your inbox. Again, we're so grateful that you joined us for this series. We're grateful to Sister Emmanuela for taking the time with us today. And we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week. Happy St. Patrick's Day, happy St. Joseph's Day, and go over to avemariapress.com to find all of our Ave Explorers content on Catholicism around the world.